Just give me a minute. Um, hey guys, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, guys, so let's get started now. And okay, many people joined. How many of you are existing student? Okay, those who are new student who are attending first session with automation, raise your hand. Okay. Only two are new students, rest all are existing one. Anyway, it's okay. So welcome guys. Welcome to the API session demo class. Basically, it will not be a demo one, it will be a more of a discussion what we are going to cover, what why we are going to do this course, what will be the benefit, what is the demand in the market, why it is important to know API automation and all those things. So before I get started, I hope most of you would already be knowing me, but I'll just give you like my introduction to you briefly. So my name is Abhigya, and I have almost 14 years of experience in IT industry. Uh, so since last 9, 10 years, more than 10 years now, I'm working on automation. So I've worked on web automation, mobile automation, API automation with different tools, with different programming languages. So if I talk about tools, I've worked on Selenium with Java, with Python, with C Sharp. I've worked on Playwright. I've worked on Cypress. For web. For mobile, I've worked on APM with Java. Currently, I'm working on WebDriver I with TypeScript. Also, APM with TypeScript currently. These are all client level testing. For API automation, I've worked on REST Assured. With Java, currently I'm working on Jest. Jest is a API automation library provided by Facebook. So I'm using Jest in my current project. Also have little bit experience in performance testing, not that much. And I also have experience with DevOps, infrastructure setup, and all those things. So with all the experience that have and whatever I have covered and whatever I have seen in the market, I'll be guiding you guys. Now let's talk about why API automation or why API testing is important. Okay. So why API testing is important. Then we'll discuss why API automation is required. Then why we need to learn which tool we can use. We should learn. So all these things we are going to learn today and discuss today. And then we'll discuss what we are going to cover, what will be the syllabus. And of course, then we'll start with the upcoming session. So first of all, can anyone tell me what is API? What is web services? What is microservices? Anyone? Anyone can tell me what is API?
Hello. Like
Yes.
like interface between two software.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, API is the interface between application and server.
So API is a interface between application and
Application and server.
okay. What else? What
Hello.
else? Yes.
Hi.
Yes, please.
Yes, actually, API is one of the set of the rules, the regulation, which interacts in between the client and servers. So, in order to smooth processing of the client and server data connection.
Hmm. Okay. Anything else?
So API is a software which enables two software to communicate with each other, irrespective of technology or programming language.
Two softwares to
Communicate with each other.
communicate with each other. Okay. What else? Okay, what is web services?
So web services also it is API, but it is work with the web, available on the web.
Okay.
The services which are available in the web application. So, that
Okay.
is known as, yeah.
What is microservices? What is microservice? Anyone? Can anyone tell me what is microservice? Can anyone tell me what is microservice? No one have any answer.
Which is independent actually. So, for example, it has its own database, and any changes if you want to do to a module without impacting others. So it's like a standalone package. That's the use of microservice. So we don't want to deploy the whole package or whole changes. Just have a component, make changes to it, deploy to it. So it's like a standalone system on its own that can be referred as a microservice.
Standalone system. Okay. We'll come to microservice later. Okay. We'll take some time to reach to microservice. But
Okay.
let us first understand what is an API, what is web service, and why we need to do API testing. And if we are doing API testing, is it required to have automation for API testing also or not? So what is the requirement in the market? Is API testing required in the market or not? And all those things. Okay. So first of all, API. API is nothing but an interface which works between two applications. It can be offline, it can be online, like your mobile phone, right? Your cell phone, you have a screen which acts as a interface to you. That is nothing but an API through which you are doing all the stuff on your phone. Okay. Similarly, when we talk about IT industry, in IT industry, we create software, we create applications. And when we are creating application nowadays, in our application, we will be integrating multiple other applications also to use their functionality. And those multiple applications will be communicating to each other, right? Through some medium, through some language. There will be some language, common language between them. There will be a mode of communication between them, which I'll show you the document also, how that works. So when two application works with each other, with set of rules that we have defined, it is known as API. But API can be offline, it can be online also. Correct. But when we talk about web service, I will discuss about web service and API in detail in upcoming sessions. Don't worry. I'll give you proper documentation because these are very basic things which will be asked in the interview. But let's understand today what is the requirement, why it is required to perform the testing for an API, why it is required. Okay. So basically a web service is an API. Okay. It is an API, but it works on a web, which means it requires internet. So a service which is available over the internet or available over the web is known as web service. It is an API, but it has to be available over a web. Okay. So every web service is an API, but every API is not a web service. So the basic difference is between web service and API is all the web services are API and they need like the web service works on web on internet, but API can be offline, it can be online. Sometimes it will require internet, sometimes it will not require internet. Okay, so that is the broad level difference between API and web service. Okay, although we are going to discuss, like I'll be showing you the document. This is a document which I have created. It's very detailed document that I'll be sharing with you. It has like it contains soap also, but we are not going to learn soap because nobody uses soap now. So it's okay. We need to focus more on REST API only. Soap we don't need to learn. So this document I'll be sharing and I'll be discussing each and everything. Don't worry about that. Okay. So if I come back now, can you tell me why we need to do API testing? Or have you ever worked as like have you ever performed testing on an API? Anyone here? Anyone here who has worked on API testing?
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I am also.
Yeah, there are many people who have worked on API testing, and it is very, very important. In fact, it is a basic thing that every tester should know, right? Now, I'll show you one example. Let's talk about, let's say, we come to this make my trip, or I'll say why people. Okay. Now, let's say I am doing a search here. I'm saying from Bangalore to Delhi. I need to check how many flights are available between Bangalore to Delhi for, let's say, 30th of April. And I'm clicking on this search flight. Okay. These are filters that I've used, like so the origin and the destination, from and to, departure date, how many travelers will be there, and some other check like filters are also there. And then I'm clicking on search flight. So after some time, you can see that all the available airlines flight which operates between Bangalore to New Delhi, which is available on 30th of April, are listed here. Now, all these airlines are not one single, they are different airlines, like SpiceJet is there, Akasha is there, Indigo is there, Air India is there, multiple, all the airlines that operates between Bangalore to New Delhi have been listed here. Now, can anyone tell me how this data is available to GoIBIBO? How this data is available to GoIBIBO?
Open API.
Through API.
Through APIs, right?
Yeah.
Or is there any other way through which they can get it? Is there any other way to get the data?
Database.
So one of the option may be, which is not possible. It is possible, but nobody will do that. That GoIBIBO has access to the database of all these airlines. That is one of the possibility, but is it feasible? Will any company
Data.
give access to database to other company? Not at all. They
Yeah.
cannot share.
Disaster. Then.
There will be a number of issues, security issue, data theft issue, many issues are there. So that is one of the possibility, but it is not feasible, correct? The other possibility can be that these different airlines are dumping or ingesting or providing their data to GoIBIBO in certain interval. Let's say after after every minute or after 5 minutes or after 1 hour. In some regular interval, these airlines are providing their data to GoIBIBO in some way. Okay. This can be one of the possibility, correct? But if this is the approach that they are sharing or they are providing or dumping their data to GoIBIBO server in regular interval, in that case, the prices, the list of airlines, the available number of seats may or may not be real-time data, correct? Correct. It
Delayed
cannot be a
yes.
real-time data because whenever a cron job will run, it will take time to dump data from one server to other server, like from airlines SpiceJet server to GoIB server to transfer the data, to dump the data, it will take some time, definitely. So it cannot be a real-time data. But in this case, in this application, the data has to be real-time, correct? Or let's say if the data is not real-time, somebody is booking a SpiceJet flight using GoIBibo. Some other person is booking same flight, same time using some other website, let's say Make My Trip. And at the end, when the settlement of the transaction is happening, one of the person got the ticket, another person may not get the ticket because of the seat availability. That can be one of the situation, correct? So again, this is possible but not feasible at all. So actually, how they are sharing the data? These different airlines, they are exposing their data through some interface, through some API. Correct. They are creating some web services and they are exposing their web services to the rest of the industry. Whosoever wants to use, they can use it. Correct. That seems to be a possible approach, and that is the approach that these companies are using. But now I have a question. What is the benefit of these airlines to expose? Because understand, in order to create these APIs, it will take man hour, right? They need resources to develop these APIs. They need to create complete application. They need to create complete infrastructure. They need to have, let's say, backend engineer. They need to have a database engineer, and many engineers will be used to develop these APIs. And then finally, they are exposing these APIs to companies like GoIBibo and Make My Trip. So my question to you guys is, what is the benefit that these airlines are getting by exposing these APIs to rest of the world?
They are getting business.
They are getting business. Exactly. Whether I am booking a flight ticket using GoIBibo or whether I am using SpiceJet website itself to book the ticket, in both ways, they are getting business, correct? And over that, when GoIBibo is using their services, they are paying them. Like SpiceJet, Akasa Airlines, they will not allow anybody to use their APIs free. They will charge something, right? For every transaction, they will charge something. So two benefit here is, one, they are getting business. Second, with every transaction, they are charging like the transaction. Like whenever GoIBibo is hitting their API, or there will be some pricing, but they are getting paid for that. So GoIBibo will pay these airlines to use their APIs, correct? So ultimately, both GoIBibo also and these airlines also are getting benefit out of that. Why or how? GoIBibo will pay these airlines to use their APIs, and at the same time, these airlines will get business, like their flight ticket will be booked. And how GoIBibo and Make My Trip will earn? So whenever you book some ticket using these website, they take some money as a convenience fees, right? They charge some convenience fees, internet fees like that, correct? So they are taking money from us also. So in this case, this is like win-win situation to both GoIBibo also and these airlines also. Now tell me one thing. Why I am showing API only? Because there is no other way to like use these different softwares. And I'll come back like how these different softwares are communicating with each other, what are the tech stack has been used to develop GoIBO server, and what is the tech stack used to create a SpiceJet service. Those things we'll discuss. But do you understand the benefit of API and web services? One more example. Let's say if I come to, let's say, facebook.com, or let me come to this Myntra. If I go to Myntra and if I go to profile, login. Okay, okay. Oh, 1 minute. If I take something like Flipkart. Mm. Okay. Now see this example of login into Book My Show. Okay. Let's say I want to log in. I want to book some movie ticket using Book My Show, and I click on sign in. Now, if you see this, either you can sign in into Book My Show using your mobile number, or you can use social login. Social login means you can use your Gmail account, like account to log in into Book My Show, or you can use your Apple account to log in into Book My Show. Correct? Now tell me one thing. Continue with Google. If I click on this, what will happen? It will ask me to log in using my Gmail account. Correct? Now tell me one thing. How this facility is available at Book My Show, that I am able to log in into Book My Show using my Gmail credential or Google credential. How is this possible? How is this possible? Can anyone tell me? Again, what has happened here? Book My Show has integrated this Google SDK here. And when I will be clicking on this continue with Google, what will happen? What will happen? I'll be getting a pop-up to enter my Gmail email ID and a password, and I'll be able to log in, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
So I will
Yes.
be logging into Book My Show using my Google account, correct?
Yes.
Now I have a
Yes.
question. Book My Show will store my credentials, yes or no? Like if I'm logging into Book My Show using Google account, where I will be entering my Gmail email address and the password, will Book My Show store my credentials, Google
Yes.
email ID and password both? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yes.
Both.
Yes.
Email and password both.
No,
Only email.
First.
only username, and I
Hmm.
guess password will be encrypted.
What else?
Or else it will ask whether I want to save the password or not.
Okay, it depends upon the provider, SDK provider or the API provider, how they have defined it. But ultimately, whenever you use your social login, like you are using your Gmail, Google credential or your Facebook credential to log in into some other application, third-party application. So they'll not allow you to store the password at all, not at all. They will allow you to store, like Gmail will, Google will allow to store, like save email address. That is possible. But password will not be stored. Google does not allow. Again, it depends how Google has developed their SDK or how they have created their web services. But again, the integration is possible through API only. And that is the benefit. Now, what is the benefit for end user here?
That
Let's
we
say,
don't have to
okay,
create
let
a
me
new
ask like this.
credential.
Yes, we don't have to, create like account again and again with different application. And if I do that, I'll have to remember like what email and what password I have entered in each application. I might forget it, right? Rather, if I can use my social login, I can use it. I don't have to remember it because I know my Google credentials. I know my Facebook credential. So for end user, I'll not have to remember all the things like what was the username and password I used to log in into my Book My Show. That is the benefit for end user. Correct. What is the benefit here for Google? They are getting paid for this service. Correct. Book My Show will pay Google to using their SDK. Correct. What is the benefit of Book My Show? What is the benefit for Book My Show here?
Think Google must be sharing the profile and history of that person with Book My Show, so that based on that, Book My Show can offer uh, product to that person, their marketing.
Okay, anything else?
Authenticated person will be access the channel or access the website.
But Book My Show can ask the user that you'll have to sign up only, like you'll have to set up your profile, then only you can log in.
It will make the
Yeah,
transaction easier and time will be saved.
Who's
Most of the people
or
have the account on email, Gmail, and
hmm.
there they have also provided the option for mobile number.
Hmm.
So BookMyShow wants to get data in any these kind of way, like they get the data from Google, they get the data from email, or they get data through our mobile number. So they are
Hmm.
providing some options to get the data
It
to
is
reach
it is
over
mainly
their
is
site.
it is mainly
Like
advertising using users' browsing habits.
Okay. What else?
so the benefit for Book My Show will be that they are providing an easy access for sign up, which will be a benefit for the end user, and more end users will be approaching towards Book My Show because it is a easy way of
Yes.
getting
So
into it.
there is a terminology used as user experience. Right now, when you create a website, your website should be like the user experience should be good for the end users. So in order to enhance the user experience, in order to make the life of end user easy, they integrate these kind of social login because ultimately end user should not get frustrated. So in order to enhance the user experience, these kind of things are used. That is business aspect. But what I'm trying to say, all these kind of things are possible now because we are into the era of web services. Earlier, when monolith application used to be happen, like the old applications, they were monolith. In those kind of application, these kind of things were not possible at all. Now we are into era of microservices. Correct. Where everything's are created separately and different applications can be integrated of different companies. That all those things have been possible because we are creating microservices and we are creating web services to expose our functionality to end users. Correct.
So
These are the
basically,
benefit of APIs. One more example. Very simple. Facebook.com. Now let me ask you something. If I enter something, let's say abc@gmail.com, and if I say my password is this,
Dudley,
can you be on? Now tell me one thing. If I click on login button, what has happened? What happened here?
it's give warning.
So it is
Your
giving me
password
a
is
login error. The password that you have entered is incorrect. Correct? I'm getting a password error, right? Login error. That the password was not correct. Okay. Now let me ask you a question. How the UI is able to get, this is UI, right? This is front end of facebook.com. I'll again go to this, facebook.com. This is front end, right? This is a front end.
Yeah.
When I enter a email and a password and I click on login, what will happen? What would have happened here? how Facebook front end came to know that the username and password are not matching, or is it is not correct? How the UI is giving me this error?
When we enter the username, a call goes to database and there the safe password is there.
Hmm.
So it fetches the password and compares what the user has entered. If it is incorrect, it gives the error message to the user in the front end.
Correct. What else? What else? Can anyone give me some other answer to this?
Length of the password should become
Length of the password. If the password criteria is not matching, okay, let's say the length of password is not okay. Let me ask you one. So somebody said that from UI a call will go to DB, and in DB the values will be stored. It will validate, and if
authenticating.
fails, then we will get error. Anybody have any other answer to this?
Validation, authentication is happening in the backend.
Authentication is
So
happening. So how the communication is happening? Can anyone tell me?
through API.
From front end to back end, it's going due to web services only.
Yeah, that's it.
So few people are saying that the request will go to backend and then it will validate. Okay, what do you mean by backend?
Our
What do
data
you
will get stored, like whatever we are
Database.
getting from front end.
Database.
backend means database?
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody is saying UI sends request to DB and compare with combination of data. Okay, no password. Okay, so now understand it very carefully. Do you know the difference between monolith and microservice?
No.
Do you know what is monolith and what is monolith?
Yes. Initially, when we were using monolithic application, that time
Hmm.
each component has different APIs. Suppose that we have a transaction and we have some suppose that we have a one website, e-commerce website. One, we have a cart where we can add the material, and second thing is we have a transaction. So if we are adding some suppose that some material, some any item we are adding in the cart, so that will be separate API, and transaction will be the separate API. So
Hmm.
there was no dependency between that. There was a dependency between them. Now each services are in this one microservices. Each services will work independently. There is no dependency. Each services has a different DB. So if any kind of issue will happen,
Hmm.
individually we can debug it, fix it, and find out that there is no, and we can deploy it independently. That is called microservices. And in case of monolithic, we were combining all the jar and we used to deploy that application.
Let's say I'm creating a web service, not web service, I'm creating a website. Let's say I'm creating a website. Website is, let's say, uh, 1 minute. I'm creating a website. Let's suppose I'm creating facebook.com. Okay. What all component will be there to create this facebook.com? Different layers, I'm asking. There will be a UI,
Front
a UI
end,
layer.
back end, MVC, controller layer, model layer, view.
That is implementation part.
Uh,
There will be a UI, correct? There will be a front end
yes.
or a UI. What else will be there?
Backend.
Okay, backend. Backend means
Database.
Database.
backend means database.
Yes, database layer.
Okay. So where the actual,
And the API actually in the middle of UI and database layer.
so what we call that?
There's a middle layer, we can say.
Middleware.
Correct.
Application
Business
layer.
business logic.
Business logic.
So you have
Monolith.
a middle layer, you are saying, right? What it will do?
Just
connectivity.
take the inputs from front end and check in the back end, and it will.
And then there will be a DB layer also, right? Database layer, correct?
So middle layer is called business layer, and on business layer there will be like application server, web server.
What is web?
So the data will enter from the front end. It will go to the middle layer on application server, and it will do client side validation, and then after send data to the database and fetch data from the database and return to the client.
So nowadays, all the applications that are getting created, which has a interface UI, which has a UI, not a complete backend business like backend application. I'm telling about a software, an application which has UI also available. I'm talking for now, I'm taking that example. So every application which has a UI, whether it is a website, it is a mobile application or whatever, it nowadays it will have three layers: a front end layer, a business layer, and a DB layer. So this will be your UI, which is also known as front end. Then there will be a business layer. And then there will be a DB layer. Correct. What will be the job of UI or front end?
To display the data correctly.
And how do we create UI nowadays? Like which tool will be used? Just name whatever you know.
Anything we can just a
Angular,
message.
React,
Website can be created through WordPress even also.
Let's suppose we are using, let's say, HTML. We are using, let's say,
CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript as well.
CSS, JavaScript,
TypeScript.
JavaScript.
React is the almost
Okay,
React and
React is
Angular.
there.
React,
Okay,
Laravel.
many things are there. Let's say these are the things, right? What is the job of front end layer? What is the job of front end layer?
Take the inputs from user.
To work as an interface for the end user, correct?
Yes.
Ultimately, end user will be using front end only. They don't have anything. They does not, you know, they are not concerned about at all with the business layer or the DB layer, correct? They don't think about. They will just use the front end layer, correct? Which can be created like with HTML, CSS, React, and many tools are there. Now, how the business layer will be created? Which tool can we use? Which tools can we use?
We can use any programming languages like
We can
Java,
use Java, we can use
C Sharp,
Python,
PST.
we can use PSP, we can use, let's say, .NET, we can use Go, we can use Node as well. Nowadays, Node also is PHP. So these kind of technology will be used to create the business layer, correct? And what technology can we use to create a DB layer? Like we can use RDBMS, we can
Oracle,
use
Mongo,
also.
MongoDB,
NoSQL.
NoSQL.
So in
NoSQL.
RDBMS, we can use, let's say, MySQL, we can use Oracle SQL, we can use Postgres, let's say nowadays.
Postgres.
And for NoSQL, we can use, let's say, uh, let's say we can use DynamoDB, we can use MongoDB, and there are multiple other NoSQLs available nowadays, correct? I can choose any technology as per my requirement, as per my convenient. Okay, this is possible through microservices. How it is possible, I'll tell you in upcoming sessions. Now, what will happen? An end user will come here. Let's say this is an end user. This is an end user. What it will do? Let's say this is a facebook.com website. Facebook.com. This end user comes and it wants to log in to its profile. What the end user will do? end user will access the UI, correct? Yes.
Yes.
What it will provide to the UI? It will provide you the
Credential.
username and let's say password, correct?
Yeah.
These data will be provided by the end user. What the front end will do? What front end will do here?
Send to business layer.
Not directly sent to business layer. Minimum client level validation will be done.
Yes.
That whether the email ID entered is valid or not. Like @ should be there. After @ at least 2 character, then dot, then 2 character should be there, something like that. And then password should have minimum length. Whatever is the criteria for facebook.com, like there should be a alphanumeric character should be there, capital letter should be there. All those basic client level validation will be performed at front end layer only, correct?
Okay.
So the job of a front end layer is not just to send the request to the backend. No, client level validation will be done at the front end only. So basic client level validation will be done. Okay. Now, if the username and password entered by the end user is valid one, then what the front end will do? It will send a request to
Business layer.
See,
business.
sorry to interrupt. If you say client level validation is done in front end, right? Which data is it actually trying to compare? Like, is it like
It is not comparing.
something has to be logic has to be stored somewhere to validate, right?
Correct.
So where is it stored in that case?
In the
This,
UI, they will store it.
so when the
So
front end, let me answer this. Okay. So the front end engineer will write the code to create the UI. They will have HTML, CSS just to render the data. Correct. But they will be using framework like React, where these kind of codes will be written to validate the value entered by the user. So what will happen? Whatever email will be entered by the user, let's say as a end user, in the username field, like if you see here, the first field is email or phone number. I entered ABC and I entered ABC. What happened? So here there is no validation, but there are many companies where if you enter ABC as an email, they will not, this login button itself will not get enabled. You must have seen those kind of website, because this is not a valid email ID and this is not also valid phone number, correct? So if I enter a invalid email ID, let's say I have entered ABC as my email and I have entered, let's say ABC@123 as my password. Now before sending the request to the business layer, now this is not mandatory. I am saying ideally this should be done. Okay. Ideally, these kind of validation should be applied at front end or client level also. Client level means the front end level.
yes.
So
Okay. With the libraries you meant to say?
not with the library. React has all those things. Like you can write the code. Okay. Front end developer do write these kind of things. Whether
You just initial validation like format,
Initial,
right? Format.
Yes, format level thing.
Format validation. Yeah.
So once this is validated and this is correct, it will send the request to backend or the business layer. Now business layer will perform the thing, and because it is a login process, it is not a sign up process. So because it is a login process, finally what business layer will do, it will send the username and password to DB layer, and it will check whether the user and name and password combinations are valid or not. But the data will be stored in where? DB. So once front end send a request to business layer will connect and communicate with DB, and it will try to validate the email and password. If it is correct or if it is not correct, whatever is there, DB will provide some data to the backend. Backend will be validating, and based on the data, whether the username password is valid or not. If it is valid, business layer will allow login to happen. If it is not valid, business layer will throw an error to front end, and the same error will be thrown to the end user. Okay, so if you are getting an error here like this, this kind of error comes from backend nowadays. 1 minute, guys. Sorry, guys. So this kind of error comes from backend only, from the business layer only.
So how will understand if it is a front end error or back end error?
You don't need to be worried about it. It's again implementation. Sometimes whatever backend throws the error or business layer provides the error, front end will just show as it is. Sometimes they will have their own error. Okay, so we'll discuss this in upcoming sessions. Again, it depends upon implementation. Okay, so it varies from how the front end developer and back end developer have implemented all these things. So what I'm trying to say is, nowadays there will be 3 layers: front end, business layer, and DB layer. Now my question to you is, let's suppose my front end has been created using HTML, CSS, React, or let's say Node.js. My business layer is created using Python. Or in the business layer, some component has been created using Python. Some component has been created using Go. Some component has been created using Java. Some component has been created using Node. Now my question here is how they are communicating when the business layer is created using different technology. How are they communicating to each other? Like if I come back to GoIBibo, let's suppose GoIBibo frontend is developed using React.js. SpiceJet backend is created using PHP. Let's say Akasha has been created using, let's say Python, or Indigo has been created using Java or Go. How these different technologies are communicating to each other? How is
So
that
web
possible?
services?
But my
I think
question,
they
yes,
must have to follow some of the protocols
yeah,
to
Yeah, you
communicate.
can use
exactly.
a middleware like MuleSoft, where you can communicate between across different technologies, right?
That is not required nowadays.
Okay.
See, I'm saying web services can be created using different technologies, right? So how they are communicating, we'll come to that. But now let us come to one important aspect. Now, if I show you this, okay, let me do one thing. Okay. Let's suppose, irrespective, like let's forget about applications and software. Let's say there are 2 persons. Let's suppose this is Abhigya and this is, let's say, Rahul. We both wants to communicate with each other. I am sitting in Bangalore. Rahul is sitting in Delhi. We want to communicate with each other. How this communication will be established? Tell me. How the communication will happen?
You need a common language and
Right.
a medium to communicate with each other.
You are giving me a technical answer. I'm asking a layman question.
Through email,
How will
phone.
I will pick up my phone and I will talk to him. I will speak to him. Right?
Oh,
So if I'm
yeah.
sitting in Bangalore and Rahul is sitting over Delhi, we can communicate it with each other over a mobile phone, or we can communicate with each other over a Zoom call, right? Correct?
Social
Yes.
media also.
Yes. So when communication has to happen between two things, The first important thing is there has to be a common mode or a format, or let's say common mode. Here it can be a mobile phone, correct? A cell phone. Like we both can communicate to each other by dialing our mobile number, correct? And what is the second important thing here? The second important thing is a common language. Let's suppose I know Kannada and Rahul knows Hindi. I don't understand Hindi at all. Rahul does not understand Kannada at all. And we are speaking to each other. I am speaking in Kannada. Rahul is speaking in Hindi. We both are not understanding what we are saying. Is this communication a fruitful communication? Nothing. No benefit. So there has to be a common language between us so that what I am trying to say, Rahul should understand. And what Rahul is trying to say, I should understand. Correct? That is the basic requirement for a communication to happen between two persons, right? So there has to be a common language. Let's say the common language, let's say English. I'm just taking the example. Correct? Now, if there is a common mode, a communication mode is available, and there is a common language is available between us, we can happily communicate each other. Yes or no?
Yes.
Similarly, when different softwares, when different applications wants to communicate with each other, same rule will be applied. There has to be a common mode and there has to be a common language, correct? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Now let's say Go IBIBO wants to communicate with SpiceJet server. Let's say there is a Go IBIBO server and there is a SpiceJet server. They both want to communicate with each other. What has to be the common mode? What can be the common mode here? Can you tell me? Can anyone tell me?
Common language?
No, I'm saying mode. What can be the common mode? What can be the common mode? Tell me. What can be the common mode?
So web services?
Let's not talk about web service. In general,
Internet.
web service is a protocol. That is a different thing.
Internet.
Internet, yes. We need it like connection between us, right? There has to be a connection between us. And that connection will happen through HTTP, yes or no?
Correct.
Over internet. That is the common method. And then we need a common language. Correct. Now, what is the common language here? Let's suppose Go IBIBO has been created using Java. SpiceJet has been created using Node.js. Java and JavaScripts are completely different. Let's suppose Go IBIBO is created using Python. SpiceJet server has been created using PHP. Again, different language. Then how will they communicate with each other? How will they communicate?
API.
So API is a way to communicate.
With the help of web services, REST API, I mean web services.
No, REST API, what is the response of REST API?
It is basically the file transfer between them. It should be the common. It could be Node.js.
I need correct answer. How do they communicate with
common understanding path like JSON and
markup language?
Exactly, JSON.
Sir, one question. Common mode would be
YAML.
web HTTP, you are saying. So if if API works for offline also, right? So in offline case, what would be the common mode? Because there won't be any web, right?
We are working on, we will be working on web service testing now. So for us, offline mode does not exist.
Okay.
We are a software testers, right? Software means available over internet. If there is no internet, then there has to be an intranet connection at least.
Okay.
Understand? So it can be internet connection, it can be intranet connection also.
Got it.
The common language between these different components are nothing but a common way of sharing data with each other. Yes or no? Have you ever seen an API? Like I'll show you. See, Facebook, or say, let's say, or Stripe API documents. Okay. Has anybody worked on Stripe API? Anyone here?
Yes.
What is Stripe? What is Stripe?
It's a payment gateway.
Yeah, it is a payment service provider, correct? Just like PayPal, or in India we have Razorpay. There are many. Like PayPal is there, Razorpay is there. Many other payment service providers are there. So Stripe is one of the payment service provider which is very famous in US and Europe, correct? Now, if you see here, this is a API documentation for Stripe. So what they do, whenever they want to expose their API to the rest of the world, they create a documentation for the API so that I can integrate Stripe API into my application. Okay, now how I will be able to integrate, I should know the requirement and everything. So they create a document for that. So this is the documentation for Stripe API. Okay. Now, if you see here, create a customer. This is a API through which I can create a customer. Means a customer can create its account to Stripe. I'm just taking one example. So in order to create a customer, we will call this endpoint, this URL. And this is nothing but a create customer API web service. And the response will be a JSON response, correct? Now I'll take one more example. Let's say Facebook login API. Okay, they provide SDK nowadays, so it will not be that simple, I believe. Again, JSON. So nowadays what happens? Every API, they communicate with other service using JSON nowadays. So in world of web services, the common language is definitely nowadays is going to be JSON only. JSON is a type of file which every technology nowadays can understand. So front end can understand a JSON, like React.js can understand JSON. They can parse a JSON file. They can create a JSON file. And they will share the data with business logic, business layer in the form of JSON only. And business layer will parse that JSON file. Whatever data is required, they will fetch it. They will create a DB query and they will run the DB query. They will fetch the DB data, and then whatever is the response, they will create a JSON response, and they will provide it to the backend. So what I'm trying to say, don't worry about what is JSON and how it is created. What I'm trying to say is, in order to communicate or in order to establish communication between different component of an application, there has to be a common mode and there has to be a common language. So the common mode is HTTP and the common language is JSON. It can be XML, it can be YAML, and so on. So what the IT people think is, let us create some protocol, define some rules which everyone should follow so that they can communicate. The different softwares, different applications can communicate with each other. And that protocol is nothing but a REST protocol, a REST API. So when we say REST API, REST itself is a protocol. It has a set of rules, set of protocols, which we will be discussing in upcoming class. When a developer follow those rules, follow those protocols, they create an API. That API is known as REST. We have other type of API which used to exist. What that was SOAP. SOAP was also a kind of API. It has different set of protocols. REST has a different set of protocol. Has anybody heard about Edge? Edge, GraphQL. GraphQL, anybody have heard about GraphQL? So GraphQL is also, it has a different protocol to create an API. So there are different protocols, but most of the companies works on REST only. And we need to test it. That is, as a tester, our job is to be test those API. Any question here, please ask. Don't go into detail. I'm just discussing why API testing is required, right? Okay, now I'll ask one thing. Let's suppose I came, like I browse Go IBO, I enter the things like I want to go from Bangalore to New Delhi. I entered the departure date, right? And I clicked on search button. Now you see the data provided by all the airlines. Now tell me one thing. What all data I'm passing here? Bangalore means the origin, the like departure or like destination and the departure date, correct?
Yeah.
And I'm clicking on search button. So these data are getting populated. What if, let's suppose, what if whatever API is provided by SpiceJet, that API meets return date also. But GoIBIBO does not send the return date. And that was required in the SpiceJet API. What will happen? What
Error
will
will come.
Definitely SpiceJet data will not be shown here, right? If error is coming, definitely data will not be shown here, correct? Whose loss is this? Whose loss it will be?
SpiceJet loss.
SpiceJet.
Correct. Now let's come to Book My Show. Let's say I'm using my Google credential to log into Book My Show. Okay. And when I entered my credential, the API that is exposed here, ultimately this is a SDK nowadays they use, but let's understand this is an API that will be hit. So when the API will be called, the Google API will be called, let's suppose the Google API is not validating the credential at all. What will happen? The people, the end user may not be able to log in, correct?
Yeah.
So again, there is a loss to Google as well as Book My Show. Correct. Let's now come to login feature of facebook.com. Okay. Let's say I am entering an invalid email and an invalid password and I clicked on login button. What if those email and password was not validated at all? What will happen? It is a security issue for Facebook, yes or no?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is testing API is very important. Why it is important? Can anyone tell me? Okay, just focus on this login functionality. Because nowadays, no front end directly communicates to DB layer. No, not possible. They don't just directly communicate to DB. There will be a business layer which will perform all the business logics. So front end will communicate to business layer will communicate to DB layer, and that's how the communication will happen. Now let's suppose in order to do the login, there is a login API, Facebook login API. That API will be called here. Okay, that API will be called here. Okay, and in that API, the front end will be passing email and password. And it's the business layer job to validate those email and password. And if email and password is valid, then only allow the user to log in. Let's suppose I did not tested the API at all. Backend developer created the API. That API was provided to the front-end developer. Front-end developer integrated that API with the front-end code. And the code was deployed to the production. Okay. Now I am as an end user, comes to facebook.com, enter my credential and I log in. Although I entered an invalid credential, I was allowed to log in. Now, if I am a tester, I am testing facebook.com. I am testing facebook.com. And I entered invalid email and a valid password. But because email ID was not valid, I should not be allowed to log in. But I was able to log in. Now what will you do? You will raise a bug, correct?
Yes.
And whom you will assign that bug? Front-end developer or back-end developer?
Front-end developer.
Will assign
Front end.
front-end developer. Now
Front end.
front-end developer will do the debugging. It will take some time. And ultimately the front-end developer will come to know, oh, it's a back-end issue. Because I am passing valid data, whatever is provided by user, I am passing that to backend. But backend server or the business logic layer is not validating the data properly. So what front-end developer will do? It will reassign the bug ticket to now to the backend developer. Again, backend developer will debug the thing. It will take some time. Okay. And then the backend developer will fix the code. And it will come back to the tester. Now, what is happening here? We are killing the time to debug the issue, correct? While, or rather, if at the same time, as soon as the API was created by the backend developer, at that time only, if a tester would have validated or tested that API thoroughly, this is a normal case, right?
Yes, yes.
A tester would have tested it. At that time only, they would have known that, come to know that there is a issue with the API. They will immediately create a bug, assign it to backend developer. Backend developer will fix it. So that what happens if the APIs are tested thoroughly, there are less chances that will occur. There will be less chance of issues coming at the front end. At least functionality wise, there are very less chance of functional issues to come if the backend APIs have been tested properly. What kind of issues will be there? Integration issue. That some integration issues there, or cosmetic issue is there, like the fields are not coming correctly, the color is not correct, the text fields are getting overlapped, the alignment is not good. So cosmetic issue will be there, but functionality wise, there will be less chance coming when the front end comes to the tester. Okay, so that is the benefit of doing the testing at API level as well. And we should do the API testing thoroughly, because ultimately when we do API testing, the functionality of that feature will be tested. And when we do the front-end testing, end-to-end testing will be required more. Functional wise, most of the thing will be tested and less bug will come at the end-to-end testing, correct? Do you understand the benefit of API testing now?
Yeah.
Any questions, please ask. Please ask. This is just a discussion session today. No doubts? Okay. So what I'm going to tell you now is, what are we going to learn here? Okay, I'll again come to importance of testing, API automation, everything. We'll in the next session we'll discuss all these things. What we are going to learn here? First of all, understanding API, web services, microservices. This is very important for interview. Second, understanding the client server architecture. Again, very important. Once and then will be something like HTTP, like REST API. What is REST API? What are the REST API protocols? And type of REST methods, like get is there, post is there, put is there, patch is there, delete is there. So there are different type of REST methods are there. Okay, we define what it is going to do. Now, once we will be clear with all these basics, which is utmost important for clearing interview. When the interview will ask you about API testing, this is utmost important, most important thing. You should know basics of these things. Like then there are types of HTTP response are there, like response code, like there are 200, 201. Then you have 300 series, like 300, 301. Then you have 400 series, then you have 500 series. Or what is the significance of all these things we will discuss. Now, once we will be comfortable with these things, then we will start with Postman. Have anyone here who has worked on Postman? Postman?
Yes, I have worked.
Yes.
So Postman is a very, very good tool. It is like used for API testing basically. So we are going to discuss Postman in detail, in very detailed manner. Like how to send request using Postman. Like I'll show you what we are going to cover. Sending a request using Postman, then creating test cases, then request chaining, then creating collections, authorization, authentication, variables like global variable, collection level variable, and all those things. Data-driven testing using Postman and CSV, then report generation, and using AI to create Postman test scripts, CI/CD integration. All these things will be covering in the Postman. Okay. Now, once we'll be done with Postman, then we will start with REST assured. Because ultimately, REST assured is something that you'll be ultimately creating your test framework. Because Postman is primarily used for sanity purpose. You cannot create a very rigorous automation framework using Postman. You cannot do that. So ultimately, you will have to use some API which is robust and everything. So we'll be learning REST assured basics.
So what is the difference between REST and REST assured?
REST assured is a tool.
Okay.
It is an API, Java API, Java library, which is used for API automation. Postman is a tool which is nothing but a client through which we can send a request to the server. REST assured is a API, Java library, which is used for API automation. Understood? And REST is a protocol through which we create REST APIs. So REST assured basics will be creating, then we'll be creating a framework using REST assured plus TestNG plus Allure report plus CI/CD. All these things will be covered in this whole course. And ultimately, you'll be getting interview questions and everything. Assignments will be there and many things. And we will be using some good open source API through which you'll be able to practice almost everything that you will be doing, like different kind of APIs to create a resource, to delete a resource, to update a resource, file uploading, different kind of authentication, many things we will be learning. So we'll be using multiple other, what we say, different type of APIs will be exploring, whatever is available open source. Okay. Because paid we cannot use, so open source APIs will be using. Okay, we'll discuss those APIs later. So that's how we are going to proceed. And remember one thing, API testing is basic thing nowadays required from a tester. Being a tester, you should know API testing. Being a tester, you should know UI or like testing, UI automation, API automation. So if you're going for an interview and that interview is for automation, definitely API automation you should know. Okay. So we'll be going to cover all these things in detail, very much detail, and we'll be learning each and everything related to REST, related to Postman, related to rest assured. Okay. Any questions? Please ask.
I had
Yes.
one question actually. Basically, like SOAP calls you are also covering, right?
SOAP will not be, nobody uses SOAP now. Don't waste your time to learn SOAP.
Oh, is it okay? Okay. Because I see some XMLs and all we have to test and other things, right? So we can able to use it in Postman. Is my understanding correct?
Nowadays, nobody uses XML because XML is very heavy. It makes your API response very slow. So in earlier, the banking domain companies used to use SOAP services. Nowadays, everybody uses REST only.
Okay. Okay.
So SOAP we are not going to cover in this course. Any other question?
For automation, what languages you will choose?
So we will be using Java because rest assured is a Java library. So we are going to use Java.
So Java is the basic prerequisite language for any test automation, like we should
If you are
do.
using Java, see which library you are going to use. It depends upon which programming language you want to use or vice versa. So if you are going to use rest assured, you can use C# or Java. But here we are going to learn Java. But for almost every programming language, there are tools available. Like for .NET, there are like tools available. Like Selenium supports .NET also, Python also. Rest assured support .NET also. Python has PyTest. And there are multiple other tools available for Python. For JavaScript or TypeScript, there are tools available. So every programming language have tools available for automation. So don't worry about that. But rest assured, Selenium is something which is basic thing nowadays, like expected out of a QA as that. Any other
So,
question?
do we need to know Java before starting that?
Yes, Java is prerequisite. If you are not sure or you are not comfortable with Java, then it will be difficult. Like when we will be starting with rest assured, everything will be coding. Like in Postman, it is not that much, like coding is not required that much. Very simple coding also, that too in JavaScript. Very basic thing. But rest assured is completely Java based thing. So coding will be required. So if you are not comfortable with Java, so what is going like, so API classes will be 8 p.m. IST starting from next Sunday, like Saturday. So the actual classes will be starting from today's 26th. The actual class will start from 3rd of May for API. So from 3rd May, the classes will be Saturday, Sunday, 8 p.m. IST. And at the same time, Selenium classes are going to start, where I will be starting with Java. Java will be starting from tomorrow morning. Timing will be 8 a.m. IST. So you can join that Java class also. So if you want in the morning, you can join the Java sessions. And once the Java sessions are over, by that time, Postman will also be over and we'll start with rest assured. So that you can know. Like in morning, you can attend the Java sessions. And in the evening, when the rest assured will start, you can join both sessions. You can join morning sessions to learn Java, and then you can join the evening sessions to learn API testing. That's how you can do.
And the Java sessions are on both Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m.
Yes. API classes will also be Saturday, Sunday, but it will start from 3rd May.
Okay.
And Selenium classes, where I will be starting with Java, will start from like tomorrow's. And for this whole API sessions, I'll be taking 2.5 months. Like approx, I will say 16 to 20 classes I will take to complete the whole this API automation class.
Sir, apart from this API and Selenium, does Rahul sir offer any project management classes too, like Scrum kind
No,
of
no. Those kind of things.
are these kind of classes too offered by him?
No. Those kind of classes are not happening here. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Abhigyan, there is one question from my side.
Hmm.
Can we expect some Git related stuff into this course? Either in Java or Selenium that you will take session?
There are videos already available on V2 Automation portal in detail, like for Git. You can go through that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So do you cover BDD as a part of REST issue?
We'll see if time permits. Because for BDD, complete new framework I'll have to create. I cannot commit right now. I'll see if it is.
I think that would be like if you could do that would be much appreciated. Yeah. Thank
But
you.
why you want to use BDD?
Yeah, these days, like if you see like everybody in Scrum, right, Agile, they prefer to go for the BDD.
Why? BDD
because
is
this,
more used in front-end automation, not in back-end automation. In API automation, BDD is not used. Because back-end automation is more for the engineers, not for the BA person or non-technical person.
these days when they are building the microservices, right, the business is taking more part of it, and they are coming up with the requirements, and they wanted to write the broken sketch, and based on that. So if there is a possibility, yeah, I think that would be the better option.
I'll not commit for now, but I'll see if time permits.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Where we will get the recordings of the session?
So recordings will be uploaded in V2 Automation portal. So everything like code and everything will be uploaded to the. So Rahul Arora will be sharing the link from where you can get the videos and code. Okay.
So Abhigya, you are teaching on only API or like Selenium too?
Selenium also I am going to take only.
Okay. So isn't the same time like 8 a.m. IST?
No, Selenium class will be 8 a.m. IST.
Oh, API is 8 p.m. IST. Okay.
API testing will be 8 p.m. IST and Selenium class will be in the morning time, like Indian time.
Okay.
Anyway, you'll be covering the BDD as part of Selenium, right? You'll be covering Cucumber, right?
Selenium also I don't cover. I cover TestNG, but I'll see if I can cover with.
Okay, I thought okay, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.